Namaskar.
Namaskar.
I'm here with Dada Krsnasevananda Avt. Namaskar, Dada. Tell us how you became involved with Ananda Marga. Why did you seek initiation?
I always had some kind of spiritual urge or meditative urge from the time that I was a kid. That became stronger and stronger as I got older, and I was studying in Japan when I was 23. I had finished university and I had a scholarship to study. And in my mind, although the focus of my scholarship was Japanese literature, my real purpose for the time in Japan was a spiritual search. And it was a magical time because I was pretty free to do whatever I wanted. And I spent time writing poetry and meditating and searching. And I know one day I was reading a book by Carlos Castaneda called The Teachings of Don Juan, and it talked about the guru-disciple relationship. And when I finished the book, I had this really powerful thought: where is my Don Juan? Where is my teacher? And I had this strong desire to go into the spiritual world, but I didn't know how. And I was having very intense experiences without drugs, just kind of ecstatic experiences. And then they would be gone and I would be terrified. So I kind of felt like myself on this really exciting but also scary edge between realization and madness. So I really needed some help, some guidance, and I put out a prayer from the bottom of my heart for that guidance. And about a week later, I was coming home off the street to the student hostel where I was living, and I passed the downstairs classroom and looked in the window, and there was this orange figure dressed in a turban like I am today, giving a talk. So I just did a spontaneous left turn and went in, sat down right in front of Dada, Krishnabudyananda, my acharya. And he spent the rest of the lecture just talking to me. And so that evening I got initiation. And 6 months later, after practicing Ananda Marga meditation and really enjoying it, I went to a big retreat in Taiwan, and when we arrived there, it was just after sunset, and I looked up at the temple and there was a big statue of Buddha, and the full moon was just over his head, and I thought, wow, something's going to happen. During the retreat, we were young people who were interested to know more about the life of acharyas. Were invited to come to a talk, and during that talk, something happened to me, and I just, for the first time in my life, I had this kind of gut feeling that this is what I have to do. And I tried to calm down, telling myself, don't rush, don't do anything hasty, think about it carefully. But as soon as I saw our SS Dada walking in the garden down below, I just lost control of my legs and I started running and told him I want to be an acharya. And he asked me, how long will it take you to go back to Tokyo? Actually, first he said, I was waiting for you to tell me that. And then he asked me, how long will it take you to go back to Tokyo and wrap up your affairs? Will 1 month be enough? And when he said that, I thought, oh my goodness, if I go back to Tokyo, every single person I know will try and stop me. So I don't know whether he could read my thoughts, but he said, or I'm leaving for India in 3 days. If you want, you can come with me. And that's what I did. I never went back to Tokyo. I don't think the Japanese government was very happy with that, nor were a lot of other people. But that's what happened. And I just felt that the ship was leaving. Either I had to jump now or it would be gone. So, yeah, that's how I went to training.
Amazing. And so you went to India, and is that when you first met Baba?
Yes. Baba was in jail in Patna at that time. And
What year are we
it was a hard experience. This is 1978, January. Yeah. And so it was a hard experience for me. I had only been meditating 6 months, and India was already a culture shock for me. I was already sick. I think the moment I got the first breath of Indian air, I became sick. So it was hard. Everybody was blissed out, and I was just, praying that my first meeting with Baba would solve all my doubts and make everything fine. But it threw me into even more of a panic because I didn't feel what I was expecting that I would feel. And everybody else was kind of in bliss, and I just was supremely conscious that Baba could see, kind of look right through me, and I felt extremely naked. Yeah, so that was very difficult for me, that first meeting.
And after that, the next time you met him, did things change a lot, or were they similar?
Well, things changed very soon after that. I was on my way with another candidate. The foreigners had to do training in Nepal at that time. And we passed through Varanasi to visit the training center there. And by this time, I was, kind of, my mental balance was really on the edge. I was just struggling to hold on to my sanity because I had plunged into this alien culture, and the one thing that I was hoping would rescue me, my meeting with Baba, was very clashy. And so I was having all kinds of doubts. I couldn't go back to Japan. I had kind of burned my bridges. If I came back there, everybody I knew would shoot me. And so I felt I was going forward into a nightmare which I couldn't go back out of. And I was experiencing shock on every level, physical, mental, and spiritual. We were waiting in a horrible town called Raxaul, I think, to catch the bus up to Nepal. The bus was due to leave after an hour, and Didi and the other candidate went shopping. I just stayed in the bus because I was too weak to move. And I saw a beggar on the other side of the square, and he saw me at the same time and started coming towards me. And then I don't know why I didn't pull my hands in, but anyway, one hand was hanging out of the bus, and he just grabbed it. And I looked into his eyes, and they were bloodshot and terrifying. And at that moment, I felt I'm losing it completely. I felt myself falling over the edge into insanity, and I had no strength to resist. But instead of whatever horror it was that was going to happen as I tipped over the edge, I just felt this beautiful globe of light come around me, and I felt loved, supported, taken care of. I felt it was Baba. I felt that everything would be fine, and I felt bliss. So I guess in my moment of total helplessness, Baba came to the rescue, and I guess that was important because up to that point I had been trying to make things happen myself, and when I reached that point, that I was no longer capable of making anything happen. So I really understood that this was grace helping me, and I felt extremely grateful. And then I felt very positive about going forward to training. My doubts, at least for that moment, disappeared.
Right. And so how long after that before you next met Baba or had an experience with him?
So the last part of my training was in Calcutta, and there I was getting to meet Baba on a daily basis. And my first two postings in the subcontinent were, well, I was posted, my first two postings were on the Indian subcontinent. Bangladesh was the first one, and Sri Lanka was the second. And the advantage was that I could come regularly. While I was finishing my training, I was seeing Baba every day. While I was at my posting, I could come for RDS and see Baba. And then eventually I got a posting to Suva sector, and but there was a long gap of 6 months because the sector didn't have enough money to pay for my ticket. So during that 6 months, I got to see Baba twice a day, every day. And during that time from my, meeting Baba after my training, during my training, the last part of my training, and after and during my postings on the Indian subcontinent, Baba did all sorts of wonderful things to help me go beyond my initial condition of being, not feeling anything and feeling very afraid and lost. So I will share some of those experiences. So the first one that comes to mind is as I began to feel more love. I mean, you can't be around Baba and with all that beauty and seeing the kinds of things that he was doing without love awakening. And so it was awakening, but it was still shy and fearful. And Baba did so many beautiful things to help me overcome that shyness and that fear. He talked to me. He talked to me in Bengali because I had been, learning some Bengali, and smiled at me, grabbed my cheek, and little things like that. But some very unusual things happened also. I had different desires as my affection was growing. I wanted to go on field walk. I saw people fanning Baba. People were helping Baba put his shoes on. And all these little desires, oh, I would like to do that, came up. And the first one was field walk. So Baba used to go morning and evening on a field walk and invite devotees to come with him. And I felt shy to ask for permission. And one morning I woke up and I just heard this voice in my head that said, "Come." And I thought, what does that mean? Come to Baba's house? And I had never heard any voice in my head before, and I haven't heard one since. So I was a bit skeptical. I got up, I had my bath, I did my meditation, I had a little bit of breakfast. Normally people wouldn't go to Baba's house until about 11 o'clock. But I went to Baba's house early, and I took a book with me just in case nothing happened. When we arrived at the gate, the guard, there was a new rule, and the guard said, you have to write down your reason first. So I thought, okay, what shall I write? And I wrote, I have come just in case Baba wants to see me. So I thought, okay, this will really see whether I am meant to be here or not. So the guard took the note, went up, and I was fully expecting to be told to go back. And then, surprisingly, he came down and said, come inside. There was nobody there. I just waited. And I read my book and looked around Baba's beautiful garden. And then around 11 o'clock, Baba came down. And when he was coming out from the side of his house, walking towards his car, he stopped about halfway. And he turned to Dada Ramananda, his assistant, and he said, and who is there to see me today? And Dada Ramananda, who didn't have a good relationship with me, looked over my head and was looking for someone else. And on that particular day, there was no one else. I was the only one there. So Baba invited me to come with him. So Dada Ramananda had to say my name, and then Baba invited me to come on the field walk with him. And the surprising thing was that in the evening, when the place was full of people, Baba invited me to come again, and again the next day. So I went on 3 field walks in a row. On one of them, I asked Baba, how was your trip to Europe? And Baba lifted up his dhoti and he said, I walked in the snow without shoes. As some people who were in Europe can verify, not without shoes, without socks. And then on another, on the evening walk, the guard gave me an umbrella to hold over Baba's head. And that was quite a challenge because Baba kind of walks like this, and I had to keep moving my arms so that I didn't bump into his head. And within a very short time, my arm was starting to become very painful. Nobody had told me that you're not supposed to ask Baba's questions. So I asked him, Baba, did you used to come here when you were a boy? And Baba said, no. So, whoops. Then I kept walking. And at that time, Muhammad Ali was training for a comeback fight, and it was in big news. And when I saw Baba going up and down, and my arm was falling off, I asked Baba, Baba, is this some kind of training program? And Baba laughed and he said, left, right, left, right. And that's all. And we walked for about maybe, I know the exact time. When we finally stopped and my prayers were answered, Baba turned to his guard and said, how long did we walk tonight? And the guard replied, 48 minutes, Baba, 2 minutes longer than last night. So I thought, wow, this is some kind of training program. Now, before I had come on that field walk, I had just got my posting to be in Suva sector as Spiritualist Sports and Adventures Club and secretary. And wonderful posting. Thank you, Baba. So I had this question if Baba could give me some direction or guidance as to what I should do. Um, so when we finished, we sat down and the guard gave me a fan and I was fanning Baba. And then Baba started to ask me questions. He said, "So, how did you like my training program?" And I said, "Baba, it was very intense. I think many Margis couldn't keep up with you." And Baba said, "Yes, that is why they don't come to see me." So I was the only one there, and I can imagine some of those rather larger Bengali Margis would have extreme difficulty to keep up with Baba. And then Baba asked me, "What is the difference between diagnosis and prognosis?" And I couldn't, if I ever knew, I couldn't remember. So I said, "I don't know." And Baba said, "Diagnosis is analysis after the fact. Prognosis is analysis before the fact." And then he looked at me and he said, "Isn't this a good prognosis?" And suddenly I realized that he was answering my question. He was giving me guidance about what I should do with my new posting. I should train the Margis by Baba's example and make them fit and make them strong. So Baba answered my question there, as well as fulfilling my desire to go on field walk. And then it was time to go. The doors had been open. I had been fanning Baba because he was very hot. And then when we started to drive, I was still sitting in the back fanning Baba, and a doubt came in my mind. Do I keep fanning or should I stop? And it's a very small little question, but when you're fanning Paramapurusha, it makes a big difference. And so I felt this confusion coming up in my mind. And then Baba turned around and looked right at me and he said, "It's all right. The window will do the job now." And he said it in such a sweet way that my heart completely melted. So that was one of the, then he recited a little poem, I think by Wordsworth, about a little boy looking out his window. So that kind of, loving, cozy thing, me sitting in the back of the car with Baba and fanning him and having this kind of conversation, just, took away all my fears and doubts.
Very sweet.
Another thing that happened was Baba used to come to our office for reporting. He would come, there was a big space where the Margis could have darshan, and there was a room at the back where we used to have the reports and meetings. And there was a cot where Baba would sit. So Baba would come in every day and sit on the cot, and a Dada would help him take his shoes off, and then he would sit in the cross-legged position, and when he was finished, he would put his feet down, and the nearest Dada would help him put his shoes on. And as I watched this every day, this desire came in my mind. I wish I could be the one that helped Baba on or off with his shoes. But again, I was too shy to ask. So one day, Baba's the meeting was over. Baba was putting his feet down. I was standing right at the back. There was about 3 rows of Dadas. And I saw Baba's feet coming down, and I was waiting for whoever was the nearest Dada to help him with his shoes. Nobody moved. It was like everybody was frozen, and Baba's feet in slow motion were coming closer and closer to the floor. And I was thinking, Baba's feet are going to come to the floor and no one's going to be there to help him with his shoes. So at that point, I just couldn't hold myself back, and I burst through the rows of Dada in front of me and knelt down at Baba's feet. And there I was, and I helped Baba on with his shoes. And then he stood up and he just stayed there for a moment. So we remained like that, with him standing and me with my hands on his feet. And then I just heard him very quietly laughing. So that was another desire that he fulfilled in quite an unusual way.
Mm.
And then the third time something like that happened was that after we had those meetings, Baba would normally go out and give a discourse for the Margis and the workers in the Jagrati. And those discourses were what became the Ananda Vachanamritam series. So because there was problems with the electricity, there would always be one or two Dadas fanning Baba while he was giving the discourse. And if the power cut off. So I watched this happening, and the same kind of desire came up in my mind. And one day, the power cut off, and everyone was shouting, all the Dadas were shouting, "Fan, fan." And those who were supposed to bring the fans with them had obviously forgotten. And at that moment, I saw a very clear picture in my mind of the fans back in the room where we had the reporting. So I turned around, ran back to the room, grabbed all of the fans very tightly, and started running back towards Baba. And on the way, different Indian Dadas were trying to take them out of my hand, but I had a very strong grip and they failed. So then I burst through the ring of people surrounding Baba and stood in front of him with the fans. And at that moment, Baba looked at me and did a very beautiful namaskar. I was a bit generous then. I gave one of the fans to somebody else, and I stood there fanning Baba happily for the rest of his discourse.
With these desires that you've been having to interact with Baba, do you think it is Baba sensing your desires, fulfilling them, or was it he putting that desire in your mind because he wanted you to do that service to him? Have you ever thought of which came first? You were fulfilling his desire?
Well, actually, I never thought about that, but now that you mention it, I remember a discourse where Baba said that your desire for the Lord only comes because of his desire for you. Yeah. So I'd have to say you are most likely correct. And thank you for saying that, because it wasn't something that had occurred to me, but I think you're right there.
But whatever is the answer, it's very sweet to experience, no doubt.
I think there's one more experience I would really like to share, and that was Avadhuta diksha, which I got shortly before I left India for my posting in Suva sector. Actually, I had been invited for Avadhuta diksha in January of 1980, but I was too sick at that time, and that was just prior to that 6 months where I was seeing Baba every day. So I think I really needed to go through those 6 months and have those kind of experiences that I was talking about with Baba, so that my feeling of closeness and confidence in our relationship was stronger before I got initiation. So there were 4 of us candidates, and we got called for initiation twice. The first time we met with Baba, and Baba started talking to us in Sanskrit, and we realized he was giving us the senior Acharya exam in Sanskrit. And So I don't think we were meant to pass that night. It wasn't meant to happen because we could barely understand the questions, what to speak of giving any answers. So we all failed, and Baba was about to leave on his trip for India, all around India. And I think that's why he was doing that training, to get himself ready so he could handle the hardship of this long, demanding tour. So we were told to remain behind in Calcutta and study Sanskrit and retake the exam when he returned. So when he returned, we had been studying Sanskrit for a month, and every night we were hoping that tonight will be the night. And every night Baba was playing his cat and mouse game and just ignoring us. And we were, kind of there and waiting, and I don't know how many applications we submitted. But one night Baba came home from the field walk late, and it was just kind of like all the other nights, very sweet and wonderful, and Prabhat Sangeet and so forth. And then Baba would get up and leave and go up the stairs, and we would follow him to the bottom of the stairs. So Baba had started to go up the stairs and was just about to disappear around the first corner, and then he stopped. And we were all down at the bottom of the stairs like this. And he stopped, and he looked back at us, and he said, "And what do these little boys want?" And I said, "We want to be your Avadhuta, Baba." And Baba said, "You want to be Avadhuta? How horrible. Let them submit their application." So we submitted our 20th or 30th application, and later that night we were called. And when we were called into the office where we met with Baba, GS and Baba's PA were there. Baba looked at us, and all of us were tall. I think 3 of us were around 6 feet or taller. And Baba looked at us up and down, and he said, "GS Dada, I think these boys are too little. What do you say, GS Dada?" And GS Dada played along with the game and said, "Yes, Baba, they are too little." And then Baba asked his personal assistant, and he also said, "Yes, Baba, they are too little." And then Baba told us to leave. And the 3 others went out of the room. And I just had this really strong feeling that it's meant to happen tonight. And so I didn't leave. I put my hands on my hips, and I said to Baba, "Baba, we may be little boys, but we are your little boys." Well, what could Baba say? So he grumbled for a moment, and then he said, "Call them back." And they called all the others back, and we got our initiation. And that was, I think, one of the last interactions I had with Baba before I left for Australia. So during that 6 months, such a change. When I first met Baba, I didn't have any feeling, and I was terrified. And by the end of that 6 months and all the little beautiful things that Baba did, I was able to, stand there with my hands on my hips and confront him and say, what I said, and feel totally at ease doing that.
Yes, that was remarkable to see how you changed from a timid, fearful bhakta to this very bold and standing up to Parampurusha like you did.
Yeah. And so I could go to my new posting feeling confident in my relationship with him. And I think that's why I was kept on the Indian subcontinent. I was so new. The first 2 postings I went, there were no Margis there. And I had to work out all my clashes. And I think I left Ananda Marga 3 times, but there was nobody there to see. So I left, came back, left and came back. And gradually worked out all my clashes without disturbing anybody. And then I got that 6 months with Baba, and that was so beautiful. And then I was sent far away, but being stronger in that relationship.
Wow. So what are you doing now, Dada?
Now, for the last 11 years, I think, or 10 years, I've been at Ananda Gaorii Master Unit in Denmark, where we have a lot of young people come to experience the yoga lifestyle. And we have lots of events. We are part of a European youth program called Erasmus Plus, and the European Union gives money for groups of young people to come and learn about different topics. So we get people from all over Europe coming in big groups. We just finished one yesterday with about 30 plus young people from Armenia, from Georgia, from Italy, and Denmark here for 8 days. And they get to experience doing yoga and meditation on a daily basis, as well as living in community and see what a spiritual community is like. And it's a real life-changing, eye-opening experience for lots of people. We love hosting them. We have a lot of our volunteers who work here and live here have come to us through these programs. So I've always been a pracar person. As I got older, it was getting difficult to travel so much. So being here at Ananda Gaorii and having lovely groups of young people come to us and stay with us is just wonderful. And I really like this project.
Well, thank you, Dada. That was both interesting and very inspiring. Thanks for sharing that with us.
My pleasure.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.